Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the United Front Football Podcast. It is a football podcast with me and Mr. Breezy. Unfortunately, we had to take a week off last week, but we're back this week. We've got plenty to discuss. We've got the FA Cup weekend. We've got some games that happened over the last couple of weeks. We've also got the England squad to discuss as well. But first off, we will jump in, as we always do, to your hot takes over on Twitter. Make sure you are following us on social medias, and every week, or every other week, whenever we record the pod, we will ask you questions, we'll ask you your hot takes, and you can get involved in the show. So, we'll start off with Mr. Scott Chapman, who's dropped a response in. Chelsea is still funny, even though we lost. Scored one of the best own goals I've ever seen to get us back into the game. Feel for Sterling in a way, he never stopped trying. Set up there second, but gets booed off by his own fans when he's subbed. Awful fans are booers. I'll be honest, I've not watched the Chelsea game in any extent. I've watched a bit of the highlights, but I can concur with the Chelsea hilarious statement.
Yeah, the Sassion goal in particular is an absolute thing of beauty. Like, he's I don't know if you've seen it. He's slightly unlucky because, like, he goes to pass it back to Sanchez and Daka just gives him a slight nudge in the back and it just sort of throws him off balance a little bit. And he ends up just, like, pinging it into the bottom corner of his own goal. Yeah,
Miles Jacobson is rubbing his hands together with that.
Yeah, see,
it happens in real life.
Yeah, it's one of I think because I've seen the highlight. I didn't get a chance to watch it because I was at the West Ham Villa game, but I was on my phone during half time. And I saw the Sterling penalty miss, and I saw his free kick right that he ballooned over the bar by about like a good couple of country miles. Yeah, it's one of them. I really like Raheem Sterling, and whenever I've seen Chelsea this year, he seems to be one of their more standout players, like alongside obviously like Cole Palmer and Gallagher and stuff. But he's always had that thing, hasn't he, where it's like he's never been the most consistent in front of goal, and I think at times his decision making definitely leaves a little bit to be desired. But he's definitely one of the last players. If I was a Chelsea fan, I feel like he'd be one of the, again, it's difficult. I don't watch him every week, but I feel like he'd be one of the last players I'd sort of boo if I was going to boo a player and cheer when they go off. Not that I've ever done that. Like, I've gotten frustrated, but like, if I do boo players, it'll be at like full time. But I find if you're doing it during a game, it's just a little bit counterproductive. Like, for me personally, anyway.
Yeah, same. I do like Sterling, and he always does seem to have, like, he never stops trying. Like, he's always had that to his game. But not that I'm defending people booing him or anything like that, but I can definitely see how fans would get frustrated with the amount of chances he gets time after time after time, and he just can't take them. It's like, so maybe it's I don't know, maybe it is directed directly at him, or maybe it's directed at the manager who's like, look, this guy's just not doing it. Like, I get that he's a big signing, he's a big name, he's on a big contract, and he is on his day when he's flowing and he's confident, he's a really good player. But the amount of times where, like, I've watched him and the attack breaks down with him because he, like, trips over himself, or he misses a sitter, or like just makes the wrong decision at the wrong time. Yeah, I can get the frustration with him, like with those kind of players. He has a knack of looking like an 18-year-old all the time. He's got a bit, like, because Garnacho's got that, right? Like, he'll do stuff where it's like he'll look amazing at one time, next time he trips over it, but he's got a memory like a goldfish. He doesn't remember the bad thing he did. He just keeps trying it, and it'll come off every now and again. And Sterling's a bit like that. He's all endeavour, but like it just doesn't always come off for him, which is a bit of a shame. And I guess we'll come on to the England squad in a bit, but like I feel like one of, I think he might go to the Euros at the end of the year, regardless, because he's one of the few players that England have got that kind of explosive energy, like, you know, of a forward player who will just keep trying it. Like, you got Rashford, who's the other really quick player, who even though he's in a bit better form at the minute, I could see him not making the final cut. And the only other player I can think of is Gordon, who kind of brings that same kind of intensity and energy. But I could see him maybe making the international squad, and especially like with Southgate in his favourites. He's been one of his favourites for years, right?
Yeah, you say that. I don't think he's been called up to a squad since the last World Cup.
Yeah,
like, yes, I don't think he's had a cap since then. So I think he's fully out of favour at the moment. But yeah, we'll definitely get onto it when we get onto the England squad discussion.
As regards booers, though, sorry, just as regards booers, I mean, I don't really have a view on it. If you pay your
No,
money and go in, you can boo if you want. You can make your opinions heard if you want.
it's one of them. I've never been. I remember when it was Allardyce's last season, I think it was, and Kevin Nolan was like right at the end of his career and shouldn't have been playing as much as he was. But like he did. I remember him getting subbed on for a game, and we were like cruising like 2-0 up. I think it was against QPR, and he got booed when he came on. And I'm just like, come on, man. He's the club captain. Like he's done a lot. Helps get us out of the championship. When he first joins, like. But at the same time, like I would be a bit hypocritical. I said a few weeks ago, having a go at people for having a go at people for what they do in the ground, leaving and all that sort of stuff. So like, look, people, like I say, people pay their money, they can voice their frustrations, whatever they want. It's just not really for me. Like, end of the game, sure, like, but it's just not really for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Only boo horrible people, not footballing decisions.
Basically, yeah. And thankfully, there's no horrible people in football. So.
Oh yeah.
There's loads.
Everyone's the same.
Yeah. Right, so we've got one here from Mr. Cookie talking about the Villa West Ham game for the weekend. Slightly confused by this one. He says that was a blatant penalty for Villa. If VAR weren't so dreadful, then Villa win that game. I don't think he realised that West Ham were the ones playing in claret and blue. I think he's referring to. I did ask on Twitter to clarify what incident he meant because I wasn't sure, and then I didn't get a response. But I assume he means when the Villa player kicked the ball at Emerson's hand when he was pointing, where to position someone. I know that happened in the Champions League final between like Spurs and Liverpool a few years back, where like Sissoko's doing that and Mane just puts his arm and they get a penalty. But like I think since then the powers that be have gone, we can't be given those for penalties because you will just have players trying to boot the ball at players' arms intentionally, and that's not. You can't give penalties for that. Like, but I remember when ball to hand was a thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I think that definitely falls in that category.
Yeah, I guess the only other side of that is like the body has to be in a natural position, and if you've got your arm out and the ball hits it, then it's not in a natural position. But I'm with you. Like, when I saw it, the only thing I could think was he's trying to hit his hand because there's no player there. Like, he's not trying to shoot. There's no player like where the ball's going. He's just seen his hand and gone, I'm gonna try and flick it off his hand.
This is where the natural position stuff kind of falls apart, though, because again, there's so much nuance in these sorts of decisions, which is partly why I don't think VAR works for those sort of calls. But like, you see all the time with players, there's constantly sort of talking to their teammates, pointing on where people should stand and whatnot. And I know that like the counter one could be, well, we'll just don't point, but it's like people do. Like it's especially in football, especially with a language barrier as well. It's so much easier to just be like, you there. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just goes a lot of grounds. So like, you can't really get rid of that for the sake of. You might get rid of it. It's bad enough when you see players with their hands behind their back when they're trying to defend the cross. I
was going to say the same thing. Like, you can't move. People are already like having to adopt how they physically move, and you're not allowed to jump with your arms in the air in case you hit someone with your arm. Then you get straight red. That's how body physics works.
No, it's ridiculous. And there was out of all the VAR calls. I mean, I don't know. We'll talk about the game in more depth, but like,
yeah,
I've had enough of VAR this weekend.
Obviously, you watched more of the game than I did. Well, I say watched it. There was about fucking 15 minutes where it was all VAR decisions, and you were just sat in the stands. But it's. I mean, if we're going to go off VAR decisions, then obviously I'd say that West Ham did more dirty than Villa. But yeah, I think Villa are in a bit of a rocky bit of form at the minute. They're looking like they don't want top 4 or top 5. Same with Spurs as well at the minute, to be honest. So it's all looking good for United, to be honest. So,
it's one of them. Yeah, it's one of them. I think when teams who don't usually qualify, I was actually like, it was probably even more impressive that Newcastle did it as convincingly as they did last year. I don't really remember them tailing off last year, but like, I remember we've had it a couple of times, like the lockdown year where we would fall for a large part of it and end up finishing 6th, and we had another season right in the top 4. But like, so when you get to that final 10 games, it almost becomes more. You always hear managers go like, "Oh, we're just thinking about the next game. We're just thinking about the next game." Surely, as a player, or anyone at the club, you get to the final 10 games and you're still there. You must be thinking,
"Oh shit,
we can do this."
That's what Spurs do every time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just the pressure kicks in. I think you saw that with Arsenal when Spurs pipped them to it a few years back. Like, and obviously, I know Arsenal as a club have had experience in getting to the Champions League, but the Arsenal squad as it was then and is now hasn't. Like, I think you just see it. The pressure gets the players ultimately, especially if you're a group of players who are not used to being in that situation. So it'll be interesting to see what happens coming into the year with Villa. But I still I say Spurs aren't the most consistent right now. United aren't the most consistent. I don't know. I think it's still very much up for grabs. It's difficult to call who's going to get that full spot.
Yeah, especially now that it seems like the top five. Thanks to you guys actually winning in Europe.
Come on,
Lions.
Yeah, despite Brighton's best efforts.
Yeah. It seems like the top five might be enough for Champions League football. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, we've had another one from Keeney, a weekly contributor. He said Nottingham Forest, even after their deduction, will finish outside the relegation zone. Luton, despite their excellent home form, are poor away, whereas Forest can get a result away from home. I kind of agree. I think Forest, they've got better. I mean, the reason they've been charged, they've got 400,000 players, so they've got better players. They've got a better pool of players to pick from. But I feel like they've got a manager who knows how to grind things out. They've got a better caliber of player at the club, and they are just kind of getting results, especially when they're going to get like a 1 year back to full fitness and players like that can really start to affect a game. Luton, as much as I love watching them because it is like every game's like a cup tie against a bigger team, they just have this unwearing ability to lose it in the last few minutes or drop points in the last few minutes. They did it again the weekend before. They went from like being able to get 3 points to getting no points. Like they just have this ability to look like they're about to get over the line and just stumble, which I think is just a player quality thing at the end of the day. Like, they just don't have the pool of players to do it. If they do stay up, if this 4 points helps them stay up, then fair enough. It's been a Cinderella tale and it's been a great watch. And I won't feel too bad if Forest go down after all after everything that they've done to get these points deducted. Well, you make your own bed for it. You make your own bed with it, don't you?
What
are your thoughts on it?
I have with the Forest thing. We'll touch on it later. I have a level of sympathy with them to some degree, but we'll go back. It only got announced today their points deduction, so we'll cover it in a little bit more depth later on. In terms of Luton, I don't know why. Maybe it's just the sort of like. I love an underdog story. I still back them to stay up. But you are right. You think the amount of points they probably dropped from either a winning position or from even when just drawing and then lose like against Arsenal, right? Was it 3-3 until Rice scored in like the 94th minute? I think the amount of points they must have dropped, it all adds up. They could be sitting like 14th, 13th right now. Maybe not 30th, born from 35 points. But you know what I mean? Like they could have been a lot clearer of the relegation zone than they are now. And I think, like you say, it just comes down to a mixture of player quality and probably lack of Premier League experience as well. I think when you're in the Championship and you're chasing the playoffs, you can afford to drop a few points here and there because the Championship usually, especially around those playoff spots, are so tight. You can claw it back because no one else around you is as consistent either. But when it gets to this, especially this point in the season, like they'll look back at some of those games, like say Liverpool's one and Arsenal, and there's been a fair few. The Bournemouth one would have been an absolute killer.
That was the one that is in my mind. Is like the 3-0 up at half time, and Villa look completely. Sorry, Bournemouth look completely lost, and then they just allow them to score, and like late goals as well. Like it's just late goals, and like they can't withstand the pressure of it all. And I feel for him.
Yeah, it's going to be it's definitely not ruled out. Like I think Everton. Despite they'll probably get another point stuck. Looking now, they're 4 points clear of Forest. They're 18th at the moment. Luton on 22 points, Everton on 25, and Forest on 21. Like 9 games to go now. 10 for Everton. It's going to be a very interesting end of the season. I did have a look at the run-ins for all the clubs. I can't remember I can't remember any of it, but I know that there's they've got some difficult fixtures coming and some fixtures against teams in and around them. So it's going to be interesting. We got one here from Cameron Hewitt, and this leads us nicely actually onto some positive Man United discussion for once, it feels like this season. As Cameron says, Liverpool should have won by a couple of goals in the second half, obviously referencing the FA Cup tie. United are hopeless out of possession. So that brings us into the 4-3. Definitely one of the best FA Cup ties I've ever seen.
It's one of the best football matches I've watched in a long time.
One of the games of the season. Absolutely. I'll be honest, I didn't get to watch the full game, obviously, because it clashed with the West Ham Villa game. But I managed to watch the majority of the second half, and I caught the last 10 minutes of second half extra time. I saw Ahmad's winner. But yeah, really weird game. I thought it was very back and forth, and there was different periods where different teams seemed to have control. But from a United perspective, I don't know how you made it through it, to be honest.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, the first half, the first 20 minutes or so, we had them under the cosh. They look rattled. We were just getting through time after time after time down the left-hand side. Aaron Wan-Bissaka as a left back is a revelation. He was doing underlapping runs. He was cutting things back. He kept shackles on Mo Salah for the entire game as well. I know he's just back from injury, but even so, it's Mo Salah, isn't it? And I know he scored, but it's Mo Salah, right? So like when we came out of that period and the game kind of settled back a little bit, and I thought it's only 1-0. We didn't take any of those other chances. I was a little bit worried, and then like to get that 1-2 sucker punch so quick before half time, I was like, oh, this is it. Like they've managed to kind of weather our best at the start of the game. They've taken a bit of control of the game back, and they're just going to score a couple in the second half, and that's all over. Because that's what I'm used to. I'm used to like a bit of a bit of effort from the United players for the start, and then it kind of, when things start to go wrong, just heads drop and like the effort drops. Second half, Liverpool did control more of the game, but other than, I mean, their third goal was really good. But other than the breakaway chance, where I don't know how they didn't score when it was like 4-2.
Mad. 5-2.
Was it 5-2? And I was like, there's the winner. That's going to make it 4 or 3 at the time, whatever it was. I have no idea how they didn't, and they just kind of like turned it back and passed it backwards and let us get back into shape. It's like, okay. That was weird, but there wasn't a ton of like really high quality chances. A couple of all right saves from Nana, but I still think like the best chances of the game did come to United, and I think Rashford to not score it in that 93rd minute, that was heartbreaking. Well, fair play to the guy. Scores the actual winner, in added on time, and like he's another player that I think in the past his head would have dropped and he'd have just kind of like phoned it in for the rest of the time or been subbed off or something.
It must be like
it was just the ultimate drama game. Like it could have gone. One team could have won that about 4-2 in real time, depending on who took their chances. Like we made the better of the chances in the first half, but we are at home. But Liverpool are the better team. But yeah, just a great game. Really, like first time I've enjoyed watching a United game in ages. Even though for a lot of it was like, oh my god, which way is this going to go? But I feel like I get the impression that a lot of Liverpool fans were the same. Like because it was just so open either side. No one could really predict the way it was going, but you know, we ended up sneaking through and getting a big victory.
It must be like you said about like the heads not dropping. It must be actually in a way, if you're a player in that situation, you're watching Liverpool. Like you say, it didn't create a lot of chances. It felt like they got into good positions to create chances and then just made the wrong decision every single time. And it must be as a player, especially in a cup tie, where like cup ties are always different, right? Because it's like anything can happen. It's it's a knockout game of football. Like it doesn't really matter. Form that sort of goes out the window, sort of thing. So if like you're watching Liverpool players make the wrong decisions constantly in front of goal, and you're still only a goal behind at home, so you must get a bit of confidence, thinking like we're still in this. Like we can, what we got to do is get another couple of chances, and we could get ourselves level here. Like, and then it's anyone's game.
Well, there was a great chance for us to go 2 goals ahead when I think it was Højlund. I can't remember whether we were 1 up or 2 up at the time. We'd scored 1 or 2 at the time, but it was like. He got the ball and it dropped onto his left foot from about 8 yards out. And I thought, just hammer this. And he looked up and then he slipped. I was like, it's good. I was like, that's the moment. Like, that is the moment.
Yeah.
That is like, and then it kind of went a little bit wayward after that. But it was, I think, to have, like, to show that they've got a bit of belief and a bit of effort. And go for 120. Some of those players going for 120 minutes and still chasing things down. I've got to give like a special shout out to Alejandro Garnacho, who was still doing lung busting sprints 120 minutes into a game. Like the guy just never stopped. Like that was one of the most impressive games, just through sheer effort, as well as kind of setting up a goal and creating chances and looking dangerous all the time. Like I think like that shows like a want to win mentality rather than someone whose head's gonna drop. Eventually, and I think hopefully, like I feel like I've said this after every decent victory for us this year, but like hopefully, like looking at that performance and like how we come out of it, can make the players go like, look, we are good, like we're all right. We can get through tough games. One of the toughest games we've had of the season against like an informed Liverpool team who are trying to do the last hurrah for Jurgen Klopp. Like. Yeah, like we can get through tough situations, so we just need another like 10 games like that before the end of the season, and who knows what can happen. It was like I don't think I can't remember jumping and screaming as much at a game I've watched on the TV when that Ahmad goal went in at the end. It's like, because I thought they'd fluffed it. I thought, like, oh, you've played it behind him. He's gone too wide. Like, the defenders got back, and it just snuck in at the bottom corner. I was like,
he does a really good thing, because like when weirdly, I felt more confident that was going to end up in a goal than when, like, I don't know, like obviously when Liverpool went through 5-on-2, you're thinking, oh, it's going to be a goal, and then I think whoever it was, might have been Diaz, just sort of delayed his decision.
Harvey Elliott, I think.
Oh, it was Elliott.
I think like they'd all broken, and it looked like they were all too compact as well. Like
they were.
The two defenders were like quite well positioned, like in front of the ball carrier, but could get to all the people. So maybe it was just something like that, where he was like, "Oh, who's in the best position?" And before you know it, like people have got back, and I think it was Amad Diallo nicked it off his toe or something. Like he was all over the place when he came on.
Yeah, but whereas the Diallo one, he did a really clever thing where, let's say, initially you feel like the ball's going behind him, you watch Diallo sort of reposition himself to sort of set himself for the shot, almost lets the ball go across him. And it's like really, bear in mind, he hasn't had a lot of opportunities. I know he had a really good loan spell last year, but he hasn't really seemed to have that many opportunities this season. Like, really well taken finish.
Tons of injuries, I think it is. Like, he just has like little niggles and recurring injuries and stuff. And, like, yeah, he's just not had the opportunity to get into the team. But I think, obviously, suspended now after getting a red card after his celebration.
But that one, I think. But yeah.
You can let him get away with that, but yeah, I can see him getting some minutes before the end of the season. Like, he's not just because of the goal, but like his performance when he was on the pitch as well. Like I say, he was all over the place. Like, he was chasing back, he was getting in last ditch tackles, he was nicking the ball off people's toes, he was playing some nice intricate stuff in the middle of the park. Just a lot of stuff that we've not seen from any of our wingers for a while. Especially like just off the bench. Like, he's shown that he can actually affect a game off the bench now. So maybe that'll just be kind of his role for the rest of the season.
And you need that for the players who are starting regularly, like someone like Rashford, or, you know, if Anthony ever got to run in the team again. Like, you need someone, but you basically need other players to keep the current players on their toes a little bit.
Yeah,
I've always been a big believer in that. So if you know you're never getting dropped because either you're a manager's favourite or there's just no one on the bench who's you know, good enough to take your spot, it's easy for complacency to slip in and to, you know, not really worry about making sure you're dropping it, like trying to get a 10 out of 10 every single game. You're like, I can drop it like a 7, I'll be fine next week. It's not a problem.
Yeah. No, it's just, again, like, just a good performance that I'm not used to this year, which is a nice one. And it's always nice to get one over the Scousers as well. So
absolutely, yeah.
Especially the levels of copium that I've been seeing on Twitter has been fantastic.
Yeah, Twitter's always a fun place to be when you beat your rival, because like,
I've been quite good. I've not even been going on and posting baiting tweets or anything, so you know that I'm really
no, I did notice. I think I was straight on Twitter and I was like, he's been oddly quiet.
Yeah, is his phone broken?
Yeah. Obviously sets you up for a semi-final against Coventry, who I didn't get to watch their full game. I watched the highlights of them against Wolves. They look very good. Like, I think they're obviously embracing the cup run, and this seems to give those players, I think they're like 8th in the championship as well. So they seem to have recovered fairly well from selling Gyökeres, who's turned into the best striker in world football at the moment, which, you know, like, okay.
Like you do.
Yeah, fair play. But yeah, it's definitely, obviously, out of all the teams you could have got, it's on paper anyway, it's obviously the easiest side you could have got. But for them, it's a massive game. Obviously, Wembley playing against Man United, who are, let's be honest, Chelsea as well, right? But like one of the teams who are fallible to losing to a championship side in a cup run, right? Confident or sort of cautiously optimistic?
I think the performances before then are going to are going to show whether I'm going to be confident or not. I think whether we can, again, like, roll with it, keep it going. We've got Brentford as our next game after the international break, who haven't been great, but can cause issues. So if we can put another decent performance in, get 3 points, and like just keep the ball rolling with it, basically, I'll be more confident. But like you say, it's a cup tie at Wembley, and anything can happen. On paper, we should be winning that, though. Like, especially if we've got players fit and players coming back. And I think Shaw and Martinez are on the way back. We just saw Mount get like half an hour as well. So like, we're actually getting a bit of depth back into the team. So hopefully, like, a bit of depth will mean that we can rotate a little bit more and keep players fit and not just be redlining people all the time, which is what's been going on all season, just because of the amount of injuries we've had. So yeah, pretty confident. In terms of the other semi-final, pretty confident it's going to be City in the final. But you never know, right? Like, I've seen Chelsea play well against City this year. Chelsea can play really well at times. For them, it's literally just finishing their chances, like, for a lot of the times. It could be a really good cup tie, that. It wouldn't surprise me for Chelsea to have an absolute mare of a season and then beat City to a FA Cup final, and then you could have the two most kind of batshit teams in the FA Cup final, and that could go either way. That
could make for a way more interesting game than if it was City v United. I think.
Yeah,
I think if it was a Chelsea United final, I think that would be that would make for a way more interesting game rather than the Manchester derby again,
rather than the City procession.
Basically. So yeah, that's the final I'm hoping for, because I think it will be absolutely all over the place in the best way possible. So it's more like an NBA style game.
Yeah,
back and forth constantly.
It's just going to be about 40 chances each, and see if they can score.
Yeah,
see how many really good chances Rashford and the Chelsea lads can miss.
There's essentially be a game involvement team in for Champs weekend. That's essentially what it's going to be like.
Be fantastic.
Bring it on.
Well, we did slightly touch on it before. We had the European games in the week, so West Ham against Freiburg, Villa and Leverkusen. Were you at the game, or did you just watch it? Or
no, I went. Glad I did. I wasn't. I was confident we get through. I wasn't just sure how or what version of West Ham would turn up, really. Because obviously, bear in mind, prior to that, we'd lost the first leg in a rather sort of conservative performance. Like, we had chances, but we weren't great. And I think a draw would have been a fairer result, but they just grabbed a goal and obviously set the first leg 1-0. And in the league game, obviously, we're 2-0 down against the worst team in the league at home. And we needed Danny Ings of all people to save us. So I wasn't super confident going into it, but I was like, we should have enough. We filled the right 11. We should have enough to win. And thankfully, Moyes did choose the right starting 11. Because Mickey Antonio came off the bench against Burnley, changed the game for us. Obviously, Will Prowse and Phillips got hooks at halftime in that game, which is not a great indictment of how their form is at the moment. But no, it was a really, really one of the best performances of the season. Don't get me wrong, Freiburg are shite. They were terrible. But I think
you can only play the team in front of you, right?
That's the thing. It'd be unfair for me to say, and it'd be unfair on Moyes as well if I just sit here and say, we only won because Freiburg weren't very good. I think they were crap, but we made them look even worse than they probably actually already are. Like I say, the front four of Kudus on the left, who's taking a bit of time to adapt to that position, but he's proving to be a really, really good direct left winger. Obviously, he's on his favoured foot, but he's still able to get inside and, as you saw with his first goal, just make mincemeat of defenders.
Yeah.
Saw Paqueta in his natural sort of more role in the middle, Bowen back out on the right, Antonio, who's had a real resurgence since coming back from injury. And dare I say, at the moment, our best midfield partnership of Edson Alvarez and Thomas Souček, who I've got to say, I've slagged Souček off a lot this season. Since we beat Brentford, he's been brilliant. I cannot fault him. Him and Alvarez have really... So it reminds me of that old Rice and Souček partnership. You just got a really good balance now. They seem to have figured it out. And it's unfortunate for Ward Prowse. It just means he can't get in the team at the moment. And nor should he, because his form's been pony. So something he's got to figure out on the training ground. But yeah, really, really good night of European football. Like I say, Kudus scores one of the best goals I think I've ever seen in person. His first goal, where it
feels like you say that every time he scores a goal.
Mate, he picks the ball up 15 yards inside his own half and just goes, "I've got this. Don't worry." It's just takes on about 4 defenders, beats them with ease, and it's just such a nice finish into the bottom corner. Just a really, really good night, and we have got, apart from Liverpool, one of the most difficult draws we could have had for the quarterfinal in Bayer Leverkusen. So that's going to be fun. And Edson Alvarez is suspended for the first leg because he picked up the most needless yellow card I think I've ever seen. We were 3-0 up, and they had the ball in the edge of our box, and he just fucking lunged in and wiped someone out. It's at the time I was like, "Oh, he's clean. I love that." And I'm like, "Fuck, he's suspended now."
Oh Christ!
Crap.
Welcome back in, Calvin Phillips. It's your options are James Ward-Prowse or Calvin Phillips. It's get Declan back on a loan for a game. So that's not ideal. But Karabag did, nearly knock Leverkusen out. They were 2-0 up in both legs and blew it. So I mean, if Karabag can put 2 past them, we might have a chance. But I'd be lying if I said I was confident at all. The only thing that gives me confidence is the second leg's at home. Do you know what I mean? If you don't do a Brighton and get 4 put part or give away 4 goals, and you sort of either take a draw or a narrow 1-0 defeat back to the home for the second leg, I think especially with us, and what I've seen down the years, we've always had a chance, I think, of turning it around, because I think the atmosphere will be absolutely booming. And it's always good to have you know what you got to do. Like if you got the
Yeah.
second leg at home, like you know what you got to do, and you've got the advantage of the crowd being behind you as well. So as long as you can keep it tight in that first, I mean, I've watched Leverkusen play a fair few times this year, and they do play some fantastic football.
Yeah.
But it is in the Bundesliga, so I don't know how good they actually are.
That's the thing, right? It's like it's how can you, yeah, it's like how can you really judge it? But then it's like you've got Oli over them. They've not lost a game at all this season. Like
Yeah.
they're still unbeaten somehow. Like which is in all competitions, which is insane. And they've got like Frimpong and Grimaldo running at Souček and not Souček, Soufal and and just our entire team is terrifying. But like I say, it's knockout football, and to give Moyes his flowers. I think European football is where he's absolutely excelled as our manager. Like, he's got it.
And just knockout football, like
Yeah.
it feels like the more pragmatic managers tend to have a bit more of a grip in one-off games, and obviously it's home and away leg,
Yeah.
right? But like you'd back yourself to at least keep it to a respectable score away from home,
Yeah.
and then at home, who knows what you can do? Like you say, you've got a guy on the right wing now who can go and take on 30 people and bang it in the top bins. Like if you've got players who can make that difference now.
Yeah, I think we get it back to our place with like I say, either a draw or like a 1-0 deficit. I think players, fans, everyone will be sitting there thinking, "No, we can do this."
Yeah.
And like that's what you got to do in these sort of games. You just got to make it as uncomfortable as possible for the opposition. I think we did that to Sevilla when we knocked them out. I think Sevilla rocked up thinking, yeah, this will be fine. And like the atmosphere.
This is our tournament.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like, oh, this is fine. Breeze past it at West Ham will be fine. But like I've never it's so rare you see it where like 20 minutes before kickoff, the atmosphere is just like electric.
Hot. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as soon as the players walked out, you could tell within the first 10 minutes. Like, I remember saying to my mates, I'm like, they're rattled by this. Like they're not. You couldn't even hear the Sevilla fans throughout the entire game. Like they weren't
proper
they
European
weren't
away day.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be it's going to be an interesting one. But in league action as well, obviously you got the draw against Villa, which I guess if you'd offered me that on before the game, I'd have taken it. Slightly disappointed how it panned out, given that we were genuinely flawless in the first half. I thought Moyes done to Emery tactically. Like, did a really good thing. We got Jared Bowen just to sit on Douglas Luiz. Like when they were trying to play out, like for the whole first half, Villa couldn't get out, and Luiz could only face his own goal basically. We did a really good job, like good high press, deserved to go ahead. Had a Kudus put the ball in the back of the net, but the referee blew for a foul on the goalkeeper, like just before, which it just wasn't a foul. And I don't know why he blew up before, rather than letting the play out sort of thing. But and then obviously we get 3 disallowed goals in the second half.
Yeah, I was going to say
which will do it.
Which is another reason why I don't 100% understand the statement from before from who was it? Was it
Cookie?
Cookie, yeah. At the end of the day, you could argue a draw was a fair result, but I think from what I saw of it anyway, like I said, I only saw extended highlights of. I'd say West Ham could and probably should have been allowed to keep one of the goals that they scored.
I think a draw is probably is a fair result. I think Villa were much better in the second half. I think because they have we're in a goal up, and I was like, this is fine. They've got Moussa Diaby on the bench, and he's brilliant and terrifying because he's just so quick.
Yeah.
And they brought him and Zaniolo. And it was him and Cash on, and then they brought Zaniolo on like 10 minutes later. And they just managed to wrestle control back. We sat back a little bit as we usually tend to, which was annoying. And yeah, I think it was just a tale of two halves. But yeah, the Antonio one, I've seen the replay back, and he's got his arms in like that, and it hits his hand and go in. By the letter of the law, if it hits your hand and goes in, it will get disallowed. So I haven't really got an issue with that one. The Souček one, I've watched it back a few times. I'm like, yeah, it hits his arm, and it looks like, but it also looks like it hits Bowen on the way in. And again, because of the rules, I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying if it hits Souček's arm accidentally, and then someone else scores, it's fine.
Yeah, you can't chalk it off.
Yeah, but I don't know if they were sure whether Bowen touched it or not. But then, they probably did reach the right decision. I guess my only argument would be, well, if you have to spend nearly 6 minutes looking at it, in what way can that be conclusive? Do you know what I mean? Like, bearing in mind with all the replays, there's the post in the way, like it's a very cluttered penalty area. I don't see how they can come to the decision that it's a conclusive reason to chalk the goal off. Like, I don't know.
That's the issue with VAR. I mean, there's many of them, but one of the biggest ones is just the time taken. Like, there has to be a time limit on it. You can't spend, like you say, 6 minutes, almost like, a quarter of the actual match. In actual terms of like ball in playtime, like you can't spend that amount of time. It's a quarter of the half. Sorry, you can't spend that amount of time trying to figure out whether, like, looking for a reason to disallow a goal.
Yeah.
Like, it's like if you go, you look at it and go, no, like, I've seen it again, and there was a definite mistake there. If you've got to replay it and zoom in and draw things and do all this kind of shit, then it's just. All it does is take away from the sport. All it does is take away from the spectacle. So yeah, no, I agree. Like, if it had been not given, and they were looking at the VAR to see whether it should be given, I think that's fine. That'd be fine. But to spend so much time looking for a goal that has been given for a reason to chalk it off, I just don't. I hate that stuff. I absolutely hate it.
And I can't reiterate this enough. It is so much worse when you're in the stadium because you have absolutely no idea what's going on. Like it's like a 90+ minute goal that we think's won the game. And again, bear in mind, say second half we were battered for the majority of our second half, and it looked like we'd nicked it. And then you celebrate, and then you just sort of sat there, and you see and the thing is, I saw the Villa players around the referee, and I'm like, they're going to check this. And then the longer it goes on, you're like, I don't know. Because I was like, oh, it's by the 5-minute mark. I was like, well, it's been going on for so long now. It can't be. You can't have clear evidence to disallow it. And then obviously, as soon as he goes to the screen, it's just like, well. They're gonna look for a reason, aren't they? Like it absolutely. I think I was talking about this today, and I said it on Twitter. I genuinely think going back to a non-VAR version of the game is just a lesser of two evils for me now. Like, you're going to get decisions that you'll look back and go, oh, that's ridiculous. But it's like I'd still rather that than what we have now. I hate the fact that we can score a goal in the 90th minute, and I'm not even sure if I can like fully celebrate it. You know what I mean? Like it's awful.
A perfect example would have been if Rashford scored that goal in the 93rd minute. I found out after the game, he might have been offside. Imagine that. Yeah. Imagine like the eruption of Old Trafford, that winning goal, just for it to to spend 5 minutes drawing lines to see if he's on. And it's like, oh no, it turns out one of his ball hairs was offside. So yeah, it doesn't count.
Offsides, I think I was in your Discord actually earlier. I saw that there's new trials for how to implement offsides now, and there's they're going to change it again. So now things that look offside are going to be onside, and things that still look offside are going to be offside as well. And it's just but at least with offside, if they make it like sort of semi-automated, offside can be a black and white decision in terms of whether you're on or you're off. And I think if you're using VAR just to determine whether it's offside or not, fine. But I also still think they should let the referee or let the linesman, flag. I don't like the whole we won't flag until the play's finished, because it's just again, if you score a goal and then you have to wait 5 minutes to figure out
what's the point of a linesman.
Exactly.
What's the point?
There's no point. Yeah, there's no point in them being there. So I'm just fully at the point now, and maybe my opinion would be different if I wasn't at regularly attending the games. But I'm at the point now. I really just, if I could click my fingers now and get rid of something, it'd be VAR. In football, I get rid of cancer and stuff, obviously. Actual important stuff in real life. Just realize how fucking awful that sounded. Like, you had this one wish to get rid of something, you got rid of VAR. What's the matter with you?
Yep, clipping that up. Yep.
Yeah. Could have ended world hunger. No, got rid of VAR instead.
Yeah. Could feed the kids. Nah, you know what? Sushek's goal should have stood.
Yeah. 3 points, baby. But yeah, so longest wait for a VR decision. You'll never sing that. I hope that's a new chant in West Ham down the years.
Right, well, we'll move on to the next point of the evening. We kind of briefly touched on it before. Forest have now been deducted 4 points for breaching the profit and sustainability rules in the Premier League. What are your thoughts on this? There was a bit of kind of reasoning to it that they submitted, in that they could have sold Brennan Johnson a bit earlier, which would have meant they didn't break PSR but wanted to wait because he didn't want to make that move. Was it to Brentford?
Brentford, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Brentford offered 30.
Yeah, they offered 30. He didn't want to make that move, and they thought they could get more money for him. Sold him for nearly 50 million to Spurs a month later, or 2 months later. But obviously that's out of the PSR period. And the panel didn't accept the defence. On the one hand, I get it. It's like, well, you know that's the period that you need to balance the books in. So you have to balance the books in that period. It's like, I need a two month leeway. It's like, well, that's next year's. So like that'll count to next year's things. So I kind of get that. And at the same time, like Everton have been docked points for not being profitable and sustainable. So it needs to be the same rule for everyone. Like if you're breaking these charges, then you need to have the punishment put across the board. Man City still get away with it, obviously, but the teams at the bottom are all going to have the relegation decided by this rule. Yeah. So it needs to be the same rule for everyone. Otherwise, because if Forest didn't get the points deduction, then there'd just be another challenge from Everton to say, well, do you need to take all our points off us? Give us all our points back then. Yeah. Because they can get away with it. Why can't we? We didn't do ours spending money. Ours is from a stadium.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I agree. I agree. If Everton had been docked points, then you do have to dock points for Forest. My issue with it, I think, comes from just I don't know. I know they're looking at changing the PSR rules. I
think it's been announced it has been changed. Like
good.
It's more of a UEFA style one. So I think it's like you can't make. I think it's a percentage of your turnover or something. Has to be within guidelines rather than a certain number amount or whatever it is. Whichever way, it's supposedly, apparently, a lot more kind of favourable to the clubs to give them a bit more leeway. And obviously, like the COVID year doesn't roll into it now as well. So you're not going to have that.
Because I don't feel comfortable with like the fact that they had an offer for a player who's homegrown. So obviously I think he was homegrown anyway, Brendan Johnson. I could be wrong on that, but like. Or let's say he wasn't, just for argument's sake. They had an offer of their star player, sort of prize asset, right? Best player last season for them. It was obviously going to be the one to make a big move in the summer. They had an offer they didn't feel was acceptable to them, and the player didn't want the move, and they believed they could get more money for him, which they were proven that that would be the case. But and it's the thing, because transfers are such a sort of long, a lot of the time anyway, especially big deals like that. Transfers can be such a drawn out process anyway. Because you're relying on the buying club to sort of have the funds ready for it, and you got negotiations, you got to negotiate with the player and all this sort of stuff. I don't know. It's weird to me that like it's almost like the rules as they were, if they've been charged now, or if they've changed now, if they were, sort of dictate the club's transfer business. And I understand. This is why I have some level of sympathy for them. Obviously, they brought a load of players, and I saw people making the argument when they first came up. It was mostly loans. They had a squad of about 12 players. Fine, you didn't need to buy 23, 25 players. Like you didn't need a squad of 30, 40 players when you're a newly promoted club. You just don't. 25.
That'd be my counter argument to it. It's like, okay, like, well, maybe they shouldn't be dictated to as to when they should sell their big assets. At the same time, they shouldn't be buying 30 players. Like,
I get that.
So like, you know the rules. Like you know the rules for it. So it's like if you know that you're going to be going into the red or like breaking PSR rules. Because you're doing all these transfers that you don't need, because they obviously don't need it, because half of these players don't even play.
Yeah.
Like it just felt like they'd gone, who can we get? Just get everyone, and we'll figure it out later. And then it was the panic of, we're going to break PSR rules. We're going to have to sell our prize asset. We're not getting the bids that we want. Like, well, at that point, then you've made the rod for your own back. Like you've either got to sell him for the price that you're being given to not break the rules, or you hold out for the price that you think he's worth. And run the risk of getting points deducted.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think if there's anyone else but Forest, I suppose the sympathy will probably extend a little bit further. But because the amount of players I have brought in, it is kind of like, well, probably should have seen this coming. But there's, I'm glad it's being changed. There's a lot of it that I've seen over the last few days, which I've not really liked. Like the idea that Villa could finish in the top 4 and get Champions League, but still have to sell a top player to comply. Like, I don't know. It seems sort of anti-competitive in that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's same with Newcastle. Like, I know I don't agree with who their owners are, but they are still the richest club in the Premier League, and the fact they almost have to sell, they're probably in a position where they have to sell either Bruno Guimaraes or Alexander Isak just to comply with FFP. Like, it just doesn't seem. I don't know. It doesn't seem fair. Like, it depends what the rules are in place for. If it's a top club's going bust, sure. But it doesn't. That doesn't feel like the priority of these rules. It almost just feels like, I don't know. It just feels super limiting and like it's almost sort of stunts ambition a little bit. Like,
100%. And like I've always said that the UEFA financial rules are anti-competitive. They're there to try and keep the top teams at the top. no matter how hard they want to try and give it up, like United, like like the teams that have historically had the most turnover and the most income, like City got slapped for it because they weren't making the income levels of the other teams, even though they've got more than enough money to deal with it. Like they should be allowed to put some money into it. Like for again, like I'm not a big fan of their owners, but they've done a lot of regeneration stuff around the club. They play good football. They've got a really good team. Yeah, it's all plastic. Like none of it really matters. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that having those kind of rules, all you can have is the old money rich clubs being allowed to win anything or being allowed to invest in anything. And it is anti-competitive, and you should be allowed to have new owners. If they want to put in money of their own, they should be able to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I kind of understand like the people want an even playing field, because on the flip side of that, you allow that to happen, then you just end up with bloated wage markets and bloated transfer fees that other people can't keep up with, or teams that will leverage their future, or like their they'll go into debt and potentially go out of business to try and keep up with it. So it's it's a hot topic. It's there's no easy answer to it. But I in the first instance, in the main instance, I do agree with you. Like there needs to be like an allowance for teams where an owner will just go, yeah, I'll stick 300 grand in the club. That's not the 300 million in the club. That's not an issue. Like to
David Sullivan.
I'll put you all a meal deal.
Some DVDs.
Yeah.
It's one of them. I think I definitely agree in terms of like, I get what you mean. It's like you don't want it inflated, like inflated wage market, all that sort of stuff. I think when it comes to the Premier League, I think the whole story got already kind of bolted on that one. Do you know what I mean? It's like I think the Premier League is always sort of the poster boy or the poster child for like massive wages, massive transfer fees that the rest of Europe just can't put up with. But as well with this as well, I'll be interested to see how the new rules of. I didn't know they got announced today, so I need to look into them.
I think it was announced, or I don't know whether it's been confirmed or I read like the proposition for it.
Okay,
but I definitely I was reading something on it.
Yeah, but I'm interested to see how that affects promoted clubs as well, because I know there's been a lot of talk this year about like the gap between the Premier League and the Championship, and I've always sort of been consistent and said, well, this year just feels like a one-off, like just in terms of who's actually gone up. But it's gonna, depending on how it goes, it's gonna be very difficult for teams who come up to spend money and be within PSR as well, by the sounds of it, just because of, if it takes account when they're in the Championship.
That and the teams have just voted against giving more money down to the lower leagues as well, haven't they? So which is great to see.
Yeah. Yeah, West Ham won on those clubs, so great.
Well, so United, I don't think there's many top clubs that were voting to give more money to the to the lower leagues, which is incredibly depressing. Like every team in the Premier League can afford to lose a couple of million.
We have on Nikola Vlasic 35 million. So I mean, if we can do that, we can give some money to everyone but Mill. No, I'm joking. But like, we can give money to all the EFL. But like,
we should just give the Jadon Sancho profit to the EFL.
Yeah,
or even better, the Mason Greenwood one.
yeah, absolutely. But no, I don't know. It's. That's why I said this to a mate of mine the other week. I was like, the thing is, I love football, but like, there's only so much I can actually talk about the industry of football before I just get depressed and go, why do I bother?
I'm honestly the same. Like the game at the weekend, like that's why I love football. Like big games, big nights, like all that kind of stuff. I love the energy and the passion of it all. The whole football machine behind it. Like I can't look at it and enjoy it. As just the person that I am, it's like this is just gross. Like it's all gross. It's all like hyper rich people and oil nations using like what was a working class sport as a plaything, and nobody cares about the teams that are kind of holding it all up from the ground up.
No.
Like I'm sure like half of the owners would much rather dissolve everything and just have one league. Like, well, we can't get relegated now. Perfect.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's I'm sure that's a longer discussion and a much more depressing one that we can go into at a later date. On a cheerier note, the England squad's been announced, and I think there is actually some positives to this. Some call-ups that I like to see. There's a couple that I'm a bit not irked about. Obviously, like the big notable call-ups like the debutants and low caps. Jared Branthwaite has been called up, and I think more than warrants his call-up. He's been one of the best centre-backs in the league, I think, this year. One of the big reasons that Everton have got a shred of a chance of staying up. He's been brilliant. Joe Gomez is back in after a bit of a career resurgence this year. He's stayed fit, which helps. And massively. He's shown that he's the most versatile defender. He can play left back, right back. He could probably even do a job in midfield if needs be. But I think for the poor options that we've got in defence, someone like Joe Gomez, and I feel the same with Kieran Trippier, players who can play kind of anywhere. Like those kind of players are really vital for us. We've seen Gordon come up, and I mentioned him before. I think he has to be nailed on for the Euros as one of the few like electric pace lads that we've got. We've got a lot of really technically great players and players who can spot a pass and play a ball through, but not a lot of players who can just run away from people. And like I said before, I think Sterling's one of them, I think Rashford's one of them, and I think Gordon's the other. I can't really think of any others off the top of my head, other than like a Brennan Johnson, but he's Welsh anyway. So I just remembered.
Why has Andy Robertson not been called up?
Yeah. You've put a couple of notes in here. Henderson called up again to the surprise of nobody. I think Gareth Southgate has been spending more time in the Netherlands than he has in England recently watching games, even though Ajax are still shite and he's a part of that team. But you said Phillips hasn't been called up, and that is an actual surprise. One of the arguments...
I thought we'd take him. I really thought we'd take him. There's no...
Well, have you heard the interviews about him? It sounded like he did everything in his power to. He was like basically saying, "Well, I still think he's the best player in that position, and he just needs a bit of consistency and a bit of game time, and he'd be in the squad if he would just had a bit more." It's like, have you not watched him play?
I think to be fair, I think he's tried not to just absolutely destroy his confidence because I think Phillips' confidence must already be in the negative right now. It's been a horror show.
You can't get in a David Moyes midfield,
Dude got hooked. In the time he's been at West Ham, he's been responsible for at least 3 goals. He's been sent off, and he's been hooked at half time against Burnley.
What a career!
That is. I don't think anyone expected it to go as bad as it has done. Yeah, man. I think I said on spot. I generally just feel bad for him now. I don't especially when I play for my club. I don't even want to see someone struggle as much as he clearly is in terms of confidence and form. But he's not a usable option right now, which is why I'm over the moon that Edson Alvarez is suspended for the next 3 games. But hey ho. I think given the options that are available, I know there's probably one player who hasn't been called up that I think there is a genuine call for him to be in there, which is Kobbie Mainoo. But at the same time, I also kind of understand why he hasn't. I don't know. Part of me still thinks it's a little bit too early. I think he's one for the next tournament.
I get that argument, but also on the flip side, he was one of the best players on the pitch in a FA Cup quarter-final against Liverpool. In that game, I know you didn't get to see the first half. In that game, he plays like a 35-year-old. He's really composed. And I've given him his props so many times, but just in that game, I think he shows that pressure doesn't really affect him that much. And I don't think, whilst it is a big pressure to get called up to the England squad and to be put in that midfield, I can't think of a better option next to Declan Rice on current form. If you want to play that double pivot midfield, if you want someone who's going to be Declan Rice is that destroyer, that anchor man for midfield, right? If you want someone next to him, you can take the ball under pressure, play the ball, beat a man, see it spot a pass. Then I don't think there's any better English options there than Kobbie Mainoo at the minute. And I think that's less of a Kobbie Mainoo's world class right now, and more of a we ain't got a whole load of options, but given time and development, he could be. He's certainly got a very high ceiling, that kid, and it never stops. It never stopped Jude Bellingham getting in the squad at 18 and being a part of
absolutely. For what it's worth, I would call him up. I would say, I think I said this a few episodes ago. I would take him in.
Get your waistcoat, you're hired.
I would take him even if he doesn't play, just to what we did with Bellingham. I think with the Euros, just have him in and around the squad, just to get used to that environment, because it is different. International football, big international tournament. I know playing for Man United is a high pressure environment, but I do think international football, especially playing for England, is another beast entirely. It's interesting actually say about like so. Wal McConville did reply on Twitter as well to us, but I'll put it in this section just because it's obviously relevant. Saying Henderson in the squad is nowhere near as bad as people are making it out. The actual issue is who is the backup for Declan Rice. To replace Rice without substantial tactical changes elsewhere, your options of one of Henderson or Eric Dyer, i.e. crap. Henderson's not one of the top 4 English midfielders, not even top 10, but he is, however, the best option to back up Rice. I think this for me, it's difficult. I don't really know how Southgate's going to line up. It depends if he is going to go with Rice in a double pivot. And that's where, okay, if that is what he's going to do, you're more likely to see Henderson, which I don't want. Like, if Henderson's going to be the Connor Cody, which is just be the good voice in the dressing room, experienced player, I think
didn't it take David Beckham when he was like 35 to a World Cup, but like for the same kind of thing? It was like I don't think it was even in the squad.
Took him.
Yeah,
Capello. He was on the touchline wearing a suit. He was basically a coach but without doing any coaching.
Like, So like, as that kind of thing, then fair enough, because like he's an experienced guy. Like he's been under a lot of pressure. He's just not a very good footballer anymore. That's the issue.
Yeah.
So like let him be a part-time coach or whatever. Like do the Beckham role or whatever. But don't have him in there to play because there's just better options there. Like Kobbie Mainoo is one. Like if you need someone to step into midfield and be a really good defensive midfielder, bring another centre back and play John Stones in there because that's where he's been playing all year and being incredible for Man City.
Yeah, people have said to me in the past, and I just don't know whether it's worth taking Stones out of his best position in defence. I know he's been really good in midfield, but I just think natural position is his best position at centre back. I just don't know if it's worth taking. And I also don't know if the next centre back down from Stones is going to be as good. Do you know what I mean? So it's like if you put Stones in midfield, you then lose something in the back by taking Stones out of there. Like that would be my slight issue.
You could flip that and say, well, John Stones has been playing his best football for years in midfield. So he's not really a defender at City anymore, is he? He's like the last 3 years he's been basically a midfielder. He's obviously a very good defender, and we are dangerously thin at the back. I don't think we've got a wealth of options. I think we've got some good young players coming through. Obviously, like the Branthwaite's there. You've got Colwill at Chelsea. Like you've got a few really good young players coming through, but like no one who's ready to step up and be in that team. I think it could be very dependent on who's fit. Basically, come the Euros. I think Maguire's punched his ticket. I think Maguire was actually brilliant at the weekend.
Maguire's been good for the last few months, right? Like he's had a good season.
When he's been coming on for United, it's when the game has suited him. It's like, okay, we need to see a game out. You just get in the box and head the ball away. Like he's great at that. If you want to if you want to defend your box, he's great at that. If you want him to do anything else or move or turn, then he can't do that. But seeing players like Joe Gomez coming back in, obviously he can play right across the back line. You've got, I think we've got some decent options in defence, and I guess it's whether you think having a stronger double pivot of John Stones and Declan Rice, which sounds great on paper, with good defenders behind, or having the potential of Calvin Phillips or Jordan Henderson in midfield. I know which one I'd go for, like, just because I think there's better defenders than they are midfielders. If that makes sense.
I do want to say as well, like I've seen a lot of people be like, "Oh, how can you take Henderson and not take like Eze or I don't know, like name an English attacking midfielder, right?" And it's just
because we've got 400,000 of the guys that are all very, very good. Who are you dropping? You're dropping Phil Foden? No. You're dropping Saka? No.
I love Eze. I think he's a brilliant player. But unfortunately, I don't think he's very reliable in terms of fitness. And we've just got too many players who play in a very similar role to what he does.
He plays where Phil Foden and James Maddison do. And unfortunately for him, Phil Foden and James Maddison are better than him. It's not to say that he's not brilliant.
Yeah, it's just one of them. Like it's one of my frustrations whenever an England squad gets announced. It's like it's either people who get annoyed at players from their own club don't get called up, or it's they just want to flood the entire squad with attacking players. And it's like I understand the frustration of Henderson being called up, but I do kind of agree with what Waldy's saying in terms of like if you're not going to take Mainoo, if you're not going to take Mainoo, and if the reasons are because you don't think he's ready yet, which we obviously that's something that people can agree or disagree with, but like if that's the reason, it's like I said, who else is there? It's Eric Dyer. It's like fucking Harrison Reed. Like, you know what I mean? The options are very limited. Like, you can't take Ward-Prowse. Like, he's not. Southgate obviously doesn't fancy him. I don't think he's suited to that, playing deeper in a double pivot. I've seen it this year. West Ham, he's just not suited to it. It's a tough one. But I do think we've got a really good squad. And I think I'll tell you, actually saying that, the one thing that did surprise me actually was Ivan Toney getting called up. That's one actually where I'm like, I didn't think Southgate would go near him after the whole betting thing.
Yeah, he seems every time I see an interview with him now, he just seems like a more and more unsavory person. And
yeah,
we've talked about it before. I don't know who wants to welcome that into their club. To be honest,
I don't.
Yeah, he's. I don't want to like get into a character assassination, but like it's just kind of like a bit remorseless about what he's done, not accepting any responsibility for it, and also like actively going, "Yeah, I want to leave. Who wants me?" It's like it's mad, especially as well. Like when there was another legitimate option there for a similar kind of player in Dom Solanke, who I think has been outstanding this year.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't get the call up over him because Ivan Toney's scored a few goals since he's been back, but I don't think he's played that well.
Yeah, I think Solanke's definitely he's played more than he does because they've had a better season. Obviously, he has. I'll be honest. I don't think we need. I really like Solanke. I don't think we need to take 3 strikers. If I'm being completely honest, like we play one up top, and Kane usually plays every single game. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like taking a 3rd striker. Obviously, if there's injuries, it might be there as like just in case Kane does get injured. But
I like the idea of Kane and Solanke and Ollie Watkins because Watkins can play anywhere in that front line. If you want someone to play off one of the flanks who's going to run in behind and press people, he can do that job. So like as a versatile forward option, yeah. But then I mean we can always get into a bit more into like what our ideal. We're getting towards the end of the season, right? Like we could start a discussion or have an episode on the England squad and like who would our 23-man squad be, our 25-man squad be, what would we line up, what do our 11s look like? We'll definitely have a look into that. But I think in terms of having an option, I think you've got to have an option up there. Because like you say, if Harry Kane gets injured, as he's got a propensity to do, roll an ankle or something, and then literally
what he's done on the weekend.
Well, yeah, I saw the thing at the weekend, and I was like, I just saw a photo of him holding his foot. I thought metatarsal. It's like, and then I tweeted out, it's like it'd be the greatest irony if Harry Kane misses the Euros to injury with a broken foot and England win it.
Yeah, that really would.
Goes to Bayern, doesn't win anything with them. The only club in Europe that's almost guaranteed a trophy every year. The one time England win a trophy is when he misses it due to injury. Honestly, I know that it's not real. I know that superstitions and curses aren't real.
Yeah.
But I know that sportsmen do think it's real, or a lot of them do. A lot of them are very superstitious people, and I wonder how many people are like looking at Harry Kane now going, get this guy out of my locker room.
I was going to say, I'm not a believer in that stuff, but the evidence is piling up.
Yeah. It's like, poor guy, because he is an unbelievable footballer and seemingly a really nice bloke as well. And he's like, I think he's on course or like on a good gallop to beat the goal scoring record in the Bundesliga in his first year.
I think he's already broken it. He's already broken it.
It's 41 for Lewandowski. And I think he's on he's on 31, but I think there's like 6 games left or something.
Oh, okay.
But with his propensity to score a hat trick in the Bundesliga, then
I think so. I think the record he's broken is like most amount of goals in a debut season or something like that.
Oh yeah, they've done that easily.
He's been mega. Just a shame about the rest of the Bayern squad.
And the manager, like as we've discussed before. But yeah, like is obviously an unbelievable player, but I wonder how many of the players in his teams are looking at him in the dressing room and going, if you weren't here, we'd win stuff. I never believed it because you were at Spurs and Spurs are Spurs, but now you're at Bayern. It's like you're not winning stuff with Bayern. It's like, oh my god.
I don't know why. Thomas Muller definitely thinks that. I don't know why him. Thomas Muller definitely thinks.
I'm going to see him in the corner in his lederhosen with a beer going. Just scowling at him.
I'm on to you, Harry. I was going to do a German accent. I don't want to offend anyone.
Yeah. He is the most... I love Thomas Muller. He's the most, like... not cliche, like caricaturic German that I can think of. Whenever someone says like German person, I can just see that picture of Thomas Muller in his lederhosen.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like a Simpsons character.
Yeah, exactly. Oh god. Well, we've got a few awful pundit takes of the week this week. It's been a while. I
was going to say we haven't had any for ages, and it felt like it's like buses, except like 6 of all time.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute honky one. Before we get into it, I did want to give a quick honourable mention. Did you see what Tim Sherwood said to Cole Palmer?
Oh god. Oh no, I did actually. Yeah, saying, if Chelsea buy some good players, you might be all right. Get them around.
And he's like, you can't say it. I'm gonna say it. Like, you're really good. And Cole Palmer's like, no, we've got good players. Like, what do you want him to say? Like,
yeah, they're all shit. Yeah.
Like,
that 1.5 billion pound squad in there. Wankers.
Fucking Tim Sherwood, mate. Honestly, just
the gift that never gives.
Yeah, just like wanker. That's that is just Tim Sherwood. Just wanker.
Well, I'm going to start off with. I mean, I'll take this as my opportunity to stick the boot into some Liverpool fans. Basically, every biased Liverpool pundit that's about huffing levels of copium and deflecting as much as they can. The most premium example is from Steve Nicol on ESPN. Now, someone had described this to me, and I couldn't believe it when I heard it. So I found the clip, and so he goes on like a 5-minute kind of rant about why Liverpool are great after United. Literally after the game, they don't talk about United winning the game. They've got Steve Nicol talking about how great Liverpool are, and then they go to the Jurgen Klopp exit interview, where he's like, "Oh well, we'll have to move on. Like, we've made some bad decisions. We've not won. Like, this wasn't the Klopp interview where he slagged off someone's weight, by the way.
Just on that, I don't actually think he
no, I think
was
that's lost in
referring to the guys.
translation.
Yeah, I think he meant like you're not in a fit. He was going after him mentally, not physically. So I mean, like,
but also I don't think there's any manager that gets away with just kind of being a snarky shit to reporters as Klopp.
He does get away with it. Like, I say get away with it. Like, I say get away with it. It doesn't get the amount of coverage. Whereas, like, if Arteta like is a knob as well, but like if Arteta had done that, like there'd be a lot more.
He does
coverage
it.
On
he does it all the time, and then every time you hear people talking about Jurgen Klopp, they go, "Oh, what a guy!" It's like, evidence doesn't prove that. It doesn't show that. But anyway, so they go to his exit interview, and then he comes back to Steve after he just made excuses and done his usual thing. He goes back to Steve Nicol and he goes, "Oh, what a manager he is!" Like adulation and like in his eyes, and then he goes off on another few minute rant about how great Liverpool are. It's like, Jesus Christ, man! Like, there's maybe I just feel it because I'm a United fan. I don't. Maybe you can write this. It feels like there are far too many incredibly biased Liverpool fans on football panels. If there's just there's like. Jamie Carragher's allowed to be a Liverpool fan, even though Gary Neville's not allowed to be a United fan. You've got Danny Murphy, who hates anything that's not dressed in Liverpool in red with a liver bird on it. Like it's just this constant stream of Liverpool fans everywhere about stuff, chatting on about stuff.
For me, I get that, but with like it's more weighted to Liverpool, but it's United and Liverpool. I think there's a lot of United.
I mean, I get why there's a lot of those kind of people on panels because they're the two biggest teams in the country, right? Like with a lot of ex-English players there. But I don't know. Rio Ferdinand aside, I feel like most ex-Man United players all just hate Man United. Like it's more slagging off Man United than it is like actually backing them up.
Yeah, I've got to say actually, I watched the end of the ITV coverage. I actually thought I can't remember what to say this. I thought Souness was quite reasonable.
Yeah, for Souness.
So,
I loved the visible kind of disgust and pain in his voice as he said, "Oh well, I've got to give United props."
Like he was gutted.
I thought he was going to throw up.
Fair enough. Like, but at least he's actually like sort of fronted it and gone like, yeah, no, they put credit to him, like edged it on the day, like sort of thing. But yeah, I don't think Carragher's got. I know you got there's a note on Carragher here. Like I know he tweeted. I feel like Carragher's not as bad when he's on TV. It's just when he gets on Twitter, say he's not as bad when he's on TV. We'll get to that. But like when he's on Twitter, he turns into. But I know why he does it. He's farming. He's just farming for likes and he's just baiting, isn't it? It's what Ferdinand does. That's why I don't like Ferdinand. It's like he's just baiting for the sake of baiting. It's just like I know you're on Twitter and it's your own Twitter account. You can do what you want. You're meant to be a professional pundit though. Like just
it's all right. It's all right when idiots like me and you do it. But
yeah.
These guys are getting paid a lot of money to do this.
Yeah, it's like just grow up. On Carragher. Did you see the Kate Abdo thing?
I didn't actually. No, when I was reading the notes before, it's the first I saw about it.
Oh God! So is it CBS? So it's him, Thierry Henry, Michael Richards, and Kate Abdo. And it was after the Arsenal game, and oh God, like they're talking about like they're just having a bit of back and forth and their banter and whatnot. Which they're like, to be fair, the show's very good. Those four have got a really good like chemistry and whatnot. But I think they're talking about like Michael Richards wearing like an Arsenal shirt as like part of a gag or whatever. And I think they say something to Caleb. They're like, "Oh, would you? Why don't you wear one?"
He's wearing it as a gag, of course. Like, it's gonna be only comedians wear Arsenal shirts.
Yeah. Michael Richards, famously not a comedian. And I think they make a point to her like, "Oh, you're gonna wear one." She was like, "Oh no, I'm loyal." And Carragher goes, "Oh, to who?" It's like, "Well, Man United, of course." And he turns around and goes, "Oh, not Malik," as in her fiance.
Yeah.
But he says it in a tone of like, "Not Malik," as in like, basically insinuating that she's, been unfaithful. And it is like, you watch. I watched it once, and when you get secondhand embarrassment.
Oh.
But to the point where it's you sort of recoil into a ball, and I was like, and he's got the look. You can see him sort of smiling, like, because he tried to make a joke. It's not paid off. I don't think he meant to insinuate he's cheating on a partner. It came across that way, but you can see he's sort of smiling, but his face is getting redder and redder. She's like, "Oh, fuck it."
I've definitely made a similar joke in a pub, not on TV.
That's the thing.
The kind of thing is like you'll make as a jokey accusation to your mate in the pub, but like in front of however many viewers. Must get at least 8.
Yeah, like I mean, people made it out to be like this big scandal. Like it honestly wasn't. It was just a really awkward moment on air. But I didn't think it warranted anything. It's not like he needs to be sacked for anything like that. It's not like he, I don't know, spat at someone. But like the best thing, the best thing to come out of this, though, was a tweet from Richard Keys. Right?
Oh God.
Now, for people of a certain age, why not remember Richard Keys? I know Richard Keys is. Richard Keys used to present Sky Sports, was with and his co-pundit guy was Andy Gray. They got sacked from Sky Sports because they got found to be making very misogynistic comments towards a female colleague. Right? I think that's fair to say.
Yep.
Richard Keys tweeted after this Carragher incident, "I think Kate Abdo is a top pro. I've no idea what Carragher is insinuating, but he crossed the line again. How many more times? That show is like so many these days. Too pally. It was an accident waiting to happen." Richard Keys, again, just remind you, got sacked because when he didn't realize the microphone was on, and he was saying, "Get your tits out for the lads," to a female colleague at Sky Sports. So, the moral beacon that is Richard Keys.
Yeah.
May he forever live in the bin.
May he forever live on TV stations I don't have access to.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to. This feels like just a piling on Carragher. I forgot his name there for a second. Carragher has been the celebration police for United, celebrating winning a quarter-final. It's like, oh, you celebrated too much. This isn't the win you think it is. It's like, yeah, we just beat you, our biggest rivals, in a cup quarter-final. It is the win that we think it is. We might lose the final, but still, you don't have to police that celebration, surely.
Thing is, I'm sure his mentions are filled with United fans, like doing what football fans do. But it's like, again, you're meant to be a pundit, you're a former player. Like, just why bother? Do you know what I mean? It's just why stir it up even more. It's just like I don't see what he stands to gain out of that. Like, other than just looking at his phone and going, like,
yeah. Well, all I can do is reiterate one of the best tweets I saw about Jamie Carragher over the weekend, where he said, after watching that United victory over Liverpool, he must be Fleming at the mouth.
Fantastic.
And on that note,
I've got one more. I've got one more to sign
sorry.
off on. Almost forgot about this. I can't. This is what inspired me to include bring back all puns next week. Paul Merson, who it's a weird one. Paul Merson. Sometimes he comes out with utter nonsense, and other times he talks about football. And I'm like, he's absolutely spot on. So he doesn't like. He has got some grasp of logic.
I would say broken clock.
Yeah, okay, fair. He was going on about, I think Phil Foden, City player game, Phil Foden was excellent. I think it was against Brentford. And he was basically raving about like Bellingham and Foden, how good Ding's squad is. And he turns around and goes, I can't see any way how we don't win the Euros. There's no one else has got a squad as good as ours. Maybe France, but only 2 of their players getting our squad, getting our team. And I'm like, Mike Mannion's, but I love Jordan Pickford. Mike Mannion's better than Jordan Pickford. Obviously, Kylian Mbappe gets in.
There's an argument.
Yeah, the entire defence gets in. Like, Teo Hernandez is probably better than both our left backs.
One of those midfielders in that gap that we said we've got no midfielder.
Yep. Yeah, they got about 3 of those. Yeah. So, take your pick.
I mean, I'd bring Pogba back.
Yeah, Pogba. They can bring Kyle Moani off the bench. They got Griezmann. They got a 40-year-old Giroud who's still brilliant. Like, I think does Benzema still play for France? If he does, they got
No.
Benzema. Like
Every time he goes to the France squad, he ends up falling out with someone and being out of the France squad.
oh yeah, okay, fair. That does sound like a very Karim Benzema thing to say. But like, I think it was Vizza, obviously a football YouTuber who played FM and stuff. He retweeted to go, "This is why everyone hates us." It's like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, I can't even argue. You know when like the Scottish fans or anyone else just goes, "Oh, English fans are so arrogant." And it's like, I can see why, because you got idiots like Paul Merson coming out with bullshit like that. I think if you speak to most sensible England fans, like they go, "We've got a good chance of winning it." I don't think I think France are still the favourites. Like, I'll probably have us like second or third favourites, but I think France I'd say clear favourites.
France and Portugal are ahead of us, but Portugal do have the Roberto Martinez factor. So
yeah,
he's obviously going to get him knocked out at the quarterfinal stages. He does with every team. I was discussing this on my Discord, and I was looking back over those Belgium squads that he had. I'm like, how he didn't win anything with those squads. It is criminal. Like at the peak, like in 08, he had Lukaku up front with Kevin De Bruyne and peak Eden Hazard behind him. There was a fit Moussa Dembele. You had Axel Witsel. You had Reggie Nangolan. And then in defence, you had Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen, and who's the one who was at Arsenal?
Vermaelen.
Thomas Vermaelen. Yeah. All their peaks, like, they're all just below all world class. Like, all of those
Courtois in goal as well.
Yeah, Courtois in goal as well. It's like, what?
Yeah.
How did you consistently just underperform with that team?
Yeah, I don't know if 08 was around that time. They also had like in striker reserve. They had Benteke and Batshuayi.
Yeah.
Not bad options to bring off the bench if Lukaku's misfiring. Like at the time anyway.
Yeah. Jan Carrasco, like these players who are playing at the elite levels in Europe. It's like it's such an unbelievable squad.
It's like we said though. I think he's a manager that's very much like attack minded, and like I said, I just think those types of I think being pragmatic gives you a better chance of winning those types.
I just don't think he's a very good coach. I just genuinely just don't think he's a very good coach. He's an unbelievable. When you see interviews with him, or he's on like football panels and things like that, unbelievable. Like his knowledge of the game is unbelievable. I think he'd be a great like director of football.
Yeah,
or like something like that, like being like in the in the shadows of a football club. But I just don't think he's a very good manager.
Yeah.
Which is why he doesn't get offered club jobs, I think. So.
Yeah, he just managed to work his way up in the international game.
Yeah.
He's Brazil manager after this.
Yeah, falling upwards. Yeah. Oh God. England fans will get their wish.
Yeah.
They'll take over England. They've brought in the attacking manager, and we'll get back to getting knocked out in the last 16.
Be careful what you wish for, as I've been told many times this season.
Right then, another episode that's gone over the hour mark from us. Although we did spend an inordinate amount of time slagging off Jamie Carragher, so time well spent, I think.
I feel like it's earned. Like, I'm usually all right with Carragher, but yeah, he's done some questionable things this week.
Yeah.
Like.
It's just when Liverpool loses, he just loses his head.
Yeah. Yeah, massively. It's almost like ex-player shouldn't commentate or pundit for, their teams. But
speaking of, actually, one final point. The commentary team for the FA Cup quarter-final.
Oh, God. I forgot. Sam Matterface and Lee Dixon. Christ.
Who thought, right? In a Manchester v Liverpool derby FA Cup quarter final, who thought bringing an ex-Arsenal Man City fan to be the voice of the commentary team was a good idea? Sure, they could have found anyone, like a guy that obviously just hates both of these teams, and he sounded like it.
Yeah,
like it was just so miserable. And I hate Sam Matterface anyway, but like that's just a given. Like he's just their guy. But they could have found anyone. Isn't Ali McCoist on their payroll? Could have got Ali. Yeah. Ali's great for any game. He loves it all.
They dropped John Champion for Sam Matterface. Like, so John Champion, I think, was the main ITV commentator, and he got dropped for Sam Matterface, which is obviously one of the worst decisions ever made in the history of anything. But like,
history.
Yeah. And I'm going on record and saying that, by the way. You can quote me on that. But there was a moment, I think, when Anstey scored the equaliser, Lee Dixon. The moment I was in Matterface doing his thing, and Dixon just goes, "But they've not been good. I can't believe it."
He is just the most miserable man in football.
Yeah, he's like the modern day Mark Lawrenson. If you remember when Mark Lawrenson, like, there was a period when he gave up, like, being a commentator, and like you could almost
gave
picture
up
him
on
in
life. To be fair,
yeah, there was like during the one World Cup, I think it was, and you could almost picture him in the commentary booth, just sort of like limp back, just like, that was rubbish, wasn't it? Do you know? Scratching his belly button, like, fucking ain't my life.
Yeah. Football's shit, innit? Well, on that note, on a final Lee Dixon smattering, we'll wrap it up there. As always, if you've enjoyed the episode, please give us a like, thumbs up, share, whatever you can do on whatever platform you watch or listen to us on. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back next time, probably.
Hopefully.
Bye.
Bye-bye.